watching Goal Line Extended, presented by Lacrosse Flash.
What's going on, Lacrosse fans? Welcome to Goal Line Extended on the Lacrosse Flash Podcast Network. Today is Tuesday, August 31st, and I'm your host, Ryan Holzbus. And whether you are watching on YouTube or listening on any podcast platform, we're glad that you're here as we have a fairly massive show planned for today. We're going to begin by looking at some of these PLL futures odds as we approach the semifinals this weekend with just 4 teams remaining, and we'll have some more on the 2 matchups that we'll see this weekend later on in the show, as well as some questions that we have in terms of the few guys currently still on the league's injured list. But wedged right in between there is a very special guest who gave us his time over the weekend as he prepares for this weekend's semifinal up in Philadelphia, as Chaos head coach Andy Towers will be joining us in just about 10 minutes as he and his team get set to take on the Atlas this Sunday. The last time we had Coach Towers on the show during the preseason, he was out walking his dog. Still one of the best interviews that I've done in my year plus or so of interviewing people here with Flash and obviously with last year. But as he was getting set and preparing for the season at that point, this time it's a semifinal that he's preparing for. So we'll see what he has to say. And then I haven't gotten the chance to watch this one back yet, but I'd imagine it's electric. It's Andy Towers. You see what he's like on the field. It's must-have, must-watch TV, and we'll get to see him lead the Chaos into their 3rd semifinal appearance. We'll first get to hear what he has to say about it in the Chaos 2021 season as a whole in a little bit. Let me first welcome in Austin Owens, Lacrosse Flash editor-in-chief, who was at it all weekend and the end of last week covering the NLL's college entry draft, which took place on Saturday, and what we're going to dive into first here, the NLL college draft. But a busy weekend, Austin. How are we feeling today?
Ryan, I am doing very well. Like you said, we're through, the busy time when that is the NLL off season. PLL is coming up, so it's a good time to be a lacrosse fan. I can't complain.
Oh, very great. Good time to really get into lacrosse if that's something that, if you're watching this, listening to this, if that's something that you think about. Great time to get in lacrosse. Obviously, we have the PLL semifinals this weekend, PLL championship in 2 weekends after that. We'll have a bye weekend in between, but we'll be here talking about it as we approach that. But for all our NLL fans and really all of our lacrosse fans in general, we hope that you were able to catch this year's draft, because if you missed it, obviously you can find the results on the Lacrosse Flash social media. I know on Instagram we have them all very nicely organized, so you can go check it out there. But in the broadcast of this draft, we had a ton of guys from Flash involved, as we had Teddy and Pat representing. They then jumped on with you, Austin, on our Flash Twitter Spaces as the draft continued into the later rounds. Great time that you guys put on there. I hope everyone was able to tune in for that. But if you missed anything and you're just finding out about all this right now, we saw Maryland's Jonathan Donville selected 1st overall by Panther City, the 2021 expansion club, followed by Ryan Lanchbury out of Richmond. Now, there were questions about whether that would be the case, that these 2 guys in particular would go in the top 2 picks, as Donville is transferring from Cornell to Maryland for his 5th and final year of eligibility, and Lanchbury is returning, I should say, to Richmond to finish that 5th and final year come this spring. So both will be unavailable this NLL season, and both Panther City and the Swarm will have to wait until next year before they can get their respective draft pick. But also, in terms of talking to and hearing what you guys have to say, you, Teddy, Pat, Ty, it seems like these 2 teams are content with that fact that they'll need to wait a year before they get their guy.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Panther City, because there was a lot of talk before the draft that, they were going to weigh whether or not they wanted a guy that they had to wait on for a year or a guy that they were going to, have step in right away. So the top name on the board there was Adam Sherlambides, the attackman from Rutgers. He's been away from box lacrosse for a little while, but he plays for the Orangeville Northmen, and I'm sure just from being around lacrosse, Ryan, you've heard of the Orangeville Northmen. Mac O'Keefe played for them, and pretty much half the NLL played for them. They're very good at bringing up lacrosse players. The unfortunate thing with him, Sherlambides, and I know I'm sort of burying the lead here, which is Jonathan Donville. I'll get to him in a second. Sherlambides is in 2018. He was supposed to play for the Brampton Excelsiors. That team, I believe, would have been Sherlambides, Jeff Teat, Clark Peterson, and Tyson Gibson all together on the same offense. So kind of stripped of that.
That's a pretty good offense, just knowing, obviously a few of those names.
In terms of junior standards, that's about as good as you can get. So, Vancouver ends up with Sherlambides at 4, and I won't touch on him too much. They're getting it, a 25-year-old, and that's sort of the thing that Panther City had to, weigh is do you get the 25-year-old rookie in Cheryl Embiidis? It's a very, peculiar situation when it comes to the NLL draft. You usually get a guy at, 22, 23, maybe 21. You get an outstanding circumstance that's an 18 or 19-year-old when they renounce their NCAA rights. But Jonathan Donville was the guy here. He's not, all due respect to him, he's not a Jeff Teat. I don't think you can put that kind of expectation on anybody other than Jeff Teat, to be quite honest with you. Even Dehoka, I think, he was a big name coming into the draft. You can't put that kind of expectation on any player to be, we talk about generational talent a lot. Jeff Teat is that. Jonathan Donville is an elite player, and he's going to be an elite player when he joins Panther City. I think the best thing for them is that he's going to get a year at Maryland. He's probably going to contend for a national title, and then he's going to get a full year of summer box lacrosse before he comes into camp with Panther City. And he was already, I believe, a top 5 scorer in the major series lacrosse circuit this year in their shortened season. So the kid's a stud. He's going to be fantastic. It's just, the waiting game. But I think for Panther City, they're not in a position where they're going to contend this year. They're, 1 year, they're going to be a couple of years away from being a playoff team. Maybe I'm wrong, but they don't need a guy that can step in right away. You got to take the best guy for your team, and that was Donville.
Waiting to wait here is Panther City and Georgia selecting, obviously Panther City selecting Donville first overall, Lanchbury going to Georgia second overall, and then with that third overall pick, the Buffalo Bandits selected former Albany attackman Toka Nanticoke, who you mentioned there before. And then later in the first round, Buffalo added another Albany product when they acquired Connor Fields from the San Diego Seals. In return, they sent the 13th overall pick, which the Seals used on forward Jacob Dunbar, and also a second-round pick in next year's draft. But Austin, as you said there, on one hand, we got Panther City, obviously building as they're the expansion team, but they're in no rush. They take Donville. The Swarm coming off a 7-5 2020 before the season got shut down, fighting in that East Division with Albany and the Wings. That'll now become that Eastern Conference. Still a really strong roster. They're adversely in contend mode, and they get this pick by way of a trade with the Riptide. So they're willing to also wait. They take Lanchbury. Now we see Buffalo, another team fully in that contend mode, take Tehoka and then make a huge splash to bring in Connor Fields, who proved this summer with the Archers that he is fully back to being the Connor Fields that we know and that we're used to. But How do you expect that these two guys fit in on this offense as they're still trying to contend? They're going to be one of those teams that we should expect to be in the playoffs, making a deep run at this thing.
I forgot to mention Ryan Lanchbury, so I'll just touch on him real quick off the top. I'm sorry that I sort of buried your question there, but
absolutely, go ahead.
He sort of fills a spot with Randy Stotts being gone due to injury and Zed Williams being traded. So that was sort of the other slam dunk pick. I won't touch too much on Lanchbury, but I think he had 29 points in 5 games during the summer season this year. So he is going to be very good once he comes from Richmond. Same deal as Donville. He'll have another full season with Richmond, and then he's going to play another full summer, I believe, with Oakville. So, another great player. Tehoka was, I don't want to say a surprise, maybe to Buffalo. He was a surprise. We expected him to go this early. I think what we expected was he wasn't going to make it past the 5th pick. I think San Diego would have taken him in a heartbeat if he made it that far. And I think Vancouver would have even taken a shot at him because of just the star power that Tehoka brings. That Fields trade is very interesting to me. And I know fourth wall break here, but we obviously talked to Coach Towers before the draft, the day of the draft. And so we didn't have a chance to talk to him about Connor Fields. It's not his player anymore, but it's very interesting to me to see how everything shook down with Chaos. I don't know the situation behind the scenes there. But the thing we talk about with Chaos is half their roster is Buffalo Bandits. And those guys were around last season when Connor Fields got benched. So I'm very interested. Obviously, Steve Dietrich, the GM of the Bandits, didn't make this move without talking to the likes of Dane Smith or Josh Byrne or anything like that. So they've obviously okayed it. It'll just be interesting to see how he fits in this offense because, the Bandits, for my money, had the best draft of any team, maybe other than the Saskatchewan Rush. But I think they went out and they already had one of the best rosters in the league. Same with Sask, but Buffalo went out and got Tehoka. They got Thomas Vason, who was a 100-point scorer in the BC Junior League last summer or 2 summers ago. And now they go get Connor Fields, who's proven that he can be a point producer in the NLL after he came off that ACL injury. So, it's going to be interesting because you have a lefty side now that's going to be Josh Byrne, Chris Cloutier, and Connor Fields. And then you have a righty side, which is stupid good. It's Dane Smith, it's Tehoka Nanticoke, It's Chase Fraser, and then you have Kyle Buchanan, who I can't forget on the righty side, who's a fantastic veteran, who's been around the NLL for a number of years now and been fantastic. First, I believe, for New England, and then now for San Diego recently, and now with Buffalo. So this offense might be the best in the league right now. And I was going to say it on Twitter. I don't think it got saved in drafts by accident, but a 2-man game with Dane Smith and Tohoka is not fun for anybody. It's bad for business if you're in defense.
Does not sound fun at all.
No, you either get run over by Tohoka or you get beat underneath by Dane for a quick shot on your goalie. It's just none of those guys are going to be a joy to play against. And then you have Cloutier and Byrne banging on the other side. It's Buffalo's, I hate to say it because I'm with Halifax, but Buffalo's a bit of a wagon this year. You got to watch out for them because their defense is good. They still have Vince, who's one of the best goalies of all time, and now they have arguably the best offense in the league. So that's a hell of a pick. I really like seeing Tohoka in Buffalo. That's one of the places that he'll truly flourish. I know we've been using that term a lot over the last couple of days, but he'll be fantastic there.
We're going to have much more on the upcoming NLL season on this show, other programs as well from Flash that will be rolling out ahead of the season, so make sure to keep your eyes and ears open for that. But like I said before, you can also check out the full results on the Flash Instagram. But Austin, this Bandits team, as you said, they look very dangerous heading into this 2021-2022 season, set to start the first weekend of December. A lot of familiar names, especially if you are a PLL fan, especially a Chaos fan, as the Bandits now add a former Chaos player to this mix. You named all those guys there on the offense, whether it's Byrne, Smith, Cloutier, Fraser, Ian McKay, Fields, Tohoka, Nanskoke now being added to that list. And Justin Gutterding is even on the Bandits protected player list, according to their roster webpage, former NCAA all-time scorer. I'm not sure how updated that is, but he is there. Right. He is, so that is right. So if you're a Bandits fan, you got to be feeling real good about where your team's at heading into this season. And frankly, if this was my team, like if this was the New York Yankees, I'm a New York Yankees fan, obviously right now. I'm a big optimist for the Yankees, but I'm a huge optimist. I'd have huge expectations coming in right now if I was a Bandits fan.
I feel like, being a, New Jersey, I know, but being a Yankees fan and sort of being in that New York area, I feel like you might be swayed to Buffalo now. It might not be hopping on the bandwagon. I'll give you a break because they haven't won a title in a couple of years. But, I'd put some stock in the Bandits this year. They're going to be tough. It's weird. We were talking about this on the Spaces because that North Division is Halifax, Toronto, and Buffalo. 3 elite teams. And all due respect to Rochester, they're up and coming. But they traded their first. They didn't do themselves any huge favors in this draft, even though they got a good player by trading that first. Halifax, Buffalo, and Toronto is going to be a war because they're going to play each other a bunch this season. I forget the new division alignment. I think it's just East and West now. It's not the 3 division like it used to be. But they're going to play each other a whole lot, and every time they play each other, it's going to be appointment viewing. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to watch it. I watched it last year when I was covering The Rock, and every game was back and forth. You didn't know who was going to win. It's like the PLL. In any given game, anyone could have beat anyone. It was fantastic to watch. So I'm excited to see this because I think Buffalo was probably the team. I don't want to say, let's say they were sort of behind a little bit. I think Halifax and Toronto were buzzing a little bit, and Buffalo sort of lost a couple games. I think Buffalo's maybe going to make a lot of people sort of I'm at a loss for words here. Their offense is so good. I think they're really going to make people pay attention to them this year is what I'm trying to get across.
Very excited for the NLL season, obviously starting the weekend of December 3rd and 4th. And talking about the Bandits, obviously talking about the Chaos could have been a very good segue into our interview with Chaos head coach Andy Towers. But before we do that, I want to quickly take a look at the most updated PLL futures lines provided by DraftKings on this year's PLL championship, as the Whip Snakes began the regular season as the favorite back in June. The 2-time defending champs, they're now back as the league favorite heading into this weekend semifinal as the 5 seed at plus 175, with the War Dogs following at plus 250. They're the 1 seed, and we'll see that matchup this weekend. On the other side, the Atlas, who are the 2 seed, and who I'd argue is playing some of the best lacrosse in the league. They're at plus 275. The Chaos sit at plus 400. They are the 6th seed. They are the lowest remaining seed in the playoffs. But as we all know, this could go any way and any which way. And heading into this weekend, I have the War Dogs at plus 1,000 from the preseason. I added the Atlas ahead of the playoffs at plus 450. And then in honor of having Coach Andy Towers today, even though I don't know if he wants me to do this, I'm adding the Chaos.
He specifically told us not to.
He told us not to. He specifically told us not to. I'm adding the Chaos though at plus 400. I just think the odds are too good. Obviously, having the Water Dogs, I got the Water Dogs at great odds ahead of this season. So hoping that one obviously comes out, but adding this Water Dog or this Chaos one, I should say, would be good. Lost the Arches one, so we got to replace it. But we're cornering the market here around the Whip Snakes. Nothing against the Whip Snakes. I just don't want to see a three-peat here from the two-time defending champs. Obviously hoping to continue riding with the Water Dogs, but Austin, the Whip Snakes are back as the favorites. Do you see it that way heading into this Sunday?
It's hard not to, honestly. And I think we've talked about this on PLL Flash and GLE. And since Matt Rambo's come back, they're just, speaking of wagons, I was talking about, Buffalo earlier. Like, the Whips are the wagon in the league, with all due respect to every other team. How do you not consider them the favorites? Like, I could pump their tires again. I think I did it on PLL Flash last week. They're dominant. And are you going to bet against Matt Rambo in Philadelphia?
I'm doing it. I am.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not. Him and Zed Williams and Joe Nardella and those boys are something. I think the only way they lose a game is if their scoring doesn't come around and Burnlore has another, tough one in net. But I don't think you're holding them off the board long enough to, win a game. But I'll happily be wrong there.
As of right now, I was big coming into the season on the War Dogs. I am staying big on the War Dogs. I can't pick against the War Dogs here in this semifinal game. So we got to make sure we do it here, cornering around the Whip Snakes. But we will see how it all unfolds. But a big weekend ahead, a lot of stakes on the line. We'll wait and see how they unfold, and we'll have much more looking ahead to those games on the other side of this interview. As Austin, let's kick it over to Andy Towers, head coach of the Chaos Lacrosse Club.
Watching Goal Line Extended, presented by Lacrosse Flash.
Welcome back to Goal Line Extended on the Lacrosse Flash Podcast Network. I hope you're all having a great day and enjoying the show as we begin to look ahead to this weekend's PLL Semifinals. And we have a very special guest joining us today to do just that, as the Chaos, led by head coach Andy Towers, will head into Philadelphia, having now won 3 of their last 4 games since coming out of the All-Star break and playing in their 3rd straight semifinal with a spot in the 2021 PLL Championship game at stake. Coach Towers, welcome back to Goal Line Extended. I appreciate you joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Hey, as you said before, when you joined in our call at first, I feel above average, definitely much more above average than I was now that we got you in here to talk. Very glad to have you on with us. Coming off big playoff win for your team, obviously kind of the storyline around your team the last couple weekends is that not many people, fan vote, obviously just the thing that's been called out, not many people picking your team here, and your team continues to get big wins and continue to move on.
Yeah, honestly, the only opinion that I care about are the opinions of the guys in our locker room. Those are the only ones that matter. Those are the only ones that go to practice. Those are the only ones that are in our huddles. Those are the only ones that are in our locker room. And, there's not a doubter in our locker room.
Definitely going to be big going into a big semifinal game against the Atlas. And I expect that it's been a pretty wild week here for you and your staff. Your team coming off a big quarterfinal win last Friday night, upset win against the Archers. You get a week off to relax a little bit, but now ramping up here for this weekend's semifinal against the Atlas, and what will be the second meeting between your two teams. We'll get to that quarterfinal win and this semifinal matchup in a moment. But, Coach, just looking back at the last time that your team played against this Atlas team, back in Week 5, your team took a 16-10 loss, and what was the 4th loss of the regular season for your team. At that point, heading into the All-Star break, you're sitting at 2-4 towards the bottom of the table. How far has this group come since that point? Because you look at the results since then. Your team's won 3 of the last 4, plus 6 score differential in that span, and now you're 1 win away from a second straight championship appearance. So how far has this team come from that loss there in Week 5?
Well, we're going to find out, when we get to Philadelphia and play the Atlas on September 5, how far we've come. I felt like going into that game, we were coming off of wins in Baltimore and Long Island. We were playing well. and we ran into a very, very well-coached and super talented Atlas team. Unfortunately, we did not have Jack Rowlett playing in that game, and so that was something that threw us a little bit off on the defensive end. And then you marry that up with the success that Trevor Baptiste had that day against us, won 70%, and it's a tough hill to climb. We jumped out to a 3-0 lead, and they scored 9 in a row on us, but we were able to rally. CJ Cospiel hit a 2-pointer. We had a couple of good offensive possessions, and we got it to within a goal with about 6 minutes left and had the ball. But credit them. They got a defensive stop. They scored in transition. Jeff Teat went off on us, and they certainly put us back in our place and made us regroup. And we feel like we've done that. Certainly our success in terms of winning games, the last 5 games is pretty well documented. We lost obviously to the Redwoods by a goal on Sunday, the second game of the last weekend up in Albany, and but other than that loss, we've beaten the Archers twice, and we beat the Chrome in Colorado Springs, and we feel like we've figured out who we want to be, and we feel like we got the right pieces on the field, and we feel like we're unified as a locker room. And I think that's what makes any team dangerous. But, we feel that that's our greatest strength. We genuinely have, 19 guys that are egoless that will be taking the field in Philadelphia. And I don't feel like the pressure's on our team. They're the ones that beat us 16-10. They were at the top of the standings all summer long and deserved it. They've played great, and they're unified. And you got to credit Ben Rubior and Kenny Clausen and their staff and their players. They are just, a really dangerous team. And with their youth and their athleticism, J.D. Colaruso's filled in great for Jack Concannon. And it's just, they're a scary team. They're one of the best teams in the league this summer, and we're certainly going to have our hands full in Philadelphia on Sunday.
So much talent in this league, and obviously you look at this Atlas team, a lot of young talent. Obviously Rubior kind of in this offseason, kind of tearing things down, building things back up, and obviously, as you said, done a very good job doing that. But your team, as you said, got off to an 0-3 start through the first 2 weekends, then back-to-back wins there in weeks 3 and 4 before falling to the Atlas there in week 5. And then, as I said before, getting really hot here over the past couple weekends down the stretch, as the Chaos have won 3 of their last 4 games, and none bigger so far than that quarterfinal W on Friday night against the Archers in a game where almost everyone counted you guys out on our Flash PLL picks. The Jenners, Teddy and Mackey were the only ones that had the Chaos winning. 13% of fans in the PLL fan vote had the Chaos winning. I know you said before, really the guys in the locker room are the only ones that care, but obviously kind of a big thing with a few of the guys on your team, like, the 13%, keep down us. And you guys have obviously taken that and used that as an advantage. And we saw last summer at the championship series, and we're seeing it now through just this one playoff game in the past couple weekends, that this Chaos team is not one that you want to count out too early, obviously getting hot here at the right time. And Coach, it seems like this group has bought into kind of that mindset that almost everyone, practically everyone, besides the guy in the locker room, at this point in the season is counting you guys out.
Yeah, listen, I mean, the idea, we have one goal as a team, and that's to win the PLL championship. And certainly every time we play, we're trying to win. We're doing everything that we can to win. Last year's team was a totally different scenario with a totally different locker room than this year's team. It appears as though this year's team is on a similar path, but we don't think about last year at all. This is, this summer and this coming game this Sunday is totally unique to this specific team. We got off to a slow start. We had a tough training camp as it relates to available bodies, due to some visa issues, due to some injury issues, due to a few guys choosing not to play this summer. We ended up with a thin roster going into certainly that first game versus the Whipsnakes, and then that second weekend where we played the Water Dogs and the Archers. And, we were in a position where we could have won those games. We were not in a position to win the Whipsnakes game in week 1. They jumped out, to a big lead and pounded us start to finish. Honestly, the Water Dogs, we were within 2 goals. We had a chance there. And the Archers, we were actually up 6-1 at the end of the first quarter, I believe. And we may have even been, I think it was 7-7 at halftime. They took it to us in the second quarter. We had won the first quarter. But we didn't deserve to win either of those games in games 2 and 3. We go against the Redwoods in Baltimore, and we're certainly mindful of how much improved they were, from the previous year. And they were really good the year before too. They only lost to the Whipsnakes, I think, in overtime in the semis in the bubble. And so, they've been right there. They lost in the championship game the first year, and they are right there with the best teams in the league. But going into that week 4, we knew we needed to cut down on the offensive turnovers because we just weren't winning a lot of faceoffs. And TD Ireland took it to us in that game, won 75% of the draws. And, yet we were able to cut down the turnovers enough where we came out with the win against a really good Redwoods team that was playing as well as anybody. And we were able to ride that momentum into the next weekend in Long Island against a dangerous Cannon team that, is explosive offensively. And then we, of course, went out and played the Atlas in Minnesota, and they played really well. And you got to credit them and knocked us down a bit. And then we have, of course, had the bye weeks in the All-Star game and came back and regrouped with a better idea of where we were going. And feeling like we had sort of 19 or 17 of our 19 spots figured out. We were figuring out sort of who the last 2 right-handed offensive players were going to be for us. And then, we're able to win that game, played well. And then we've had a slightly different roster going into the first game of Albany against the Archers and played really well. We didn't shoot particularly well, but a big part of that was Adam Gitterman playing just an incredible game against us. And he's had a great year in general. And, but he played an exceptional game against us and we won, but we didn't finish very well. And then, of course, we played the Redwoods that Sunday with the same exact roster. And I felt we played well in that game too. But Timmy Troutner played really, really well again. And so we were hoping to finish better, shoot more responsibly and have more success. And we felt that we were able to do that and certainly ride the success that Max Adler had at the Face-Off X, ride the success that Jack Rowlett had in covering Grant Amen, and ride what has been a 10-foot surfboard for us since the first season, and that's the play of Blaze Reardon, who simply put is the best player in the world at this point. And so we feel like we know who we are, but we also feel that we have to continue to get better and play our best game this weekend against the Atlas in order for us to come out with the desired result. And that's a win against a really, really talented and well-coached team in the Atlas in order to have a shot to accomplish, the goal of our locker room.
Absolutely not. This Atlas team being the number 2 seed, obviously lost there in that number 1 overall seed game there in week 8. But you said it there, your team coming into this game, it's really just different guys stepping up at different times. We saw here in this quarterfinal game, which we'll get to in a little bit, but Kyle Jackson coming out of nowhere, putting together a really good performance for this Chaos team. But let's take a look at this win from this past weekend as your team can advance in these PLL playoffs and inch closer, obviously, to that goal of your locker room, to that championship game. You start with this quarterfinal round against a fairly familiar team and a team that your squad has been very successful against over the past 3 seasons in the Archers. You come into this one without one of the bigger pieces offensively for your team over the past couple weekends and really all season in attackman Chris Cloutier. He was placed on that injured reserve following your week 8 doubleheader, and this is a guy that has recorded a point in every game this season, but 1 for your team. He scored multiple points in all but 2 games. He's had a 4-goal game just a couple weeks ago against the Chrome, so clearly a huge loss ahead of elimination lacrosse. But filling his shoes, as I just said, without skipping a beat, is Kyle Jackson. He hasn't played since that week 5 loss to the Atlas. He comes in, puts up 6 points off 4 goals and 2 assists. And we've seen that a few times this season where somewhat unfamiliar faces on your team come in and put up huge performances, whether it's rookie Ryan Smith, who you drafted in the later rounds of the college draft. We've seen Chase Frazier in recent weeks, who NLL and Buffalo Bandits fans are fully aware of, and PLL fans were fully introduced to back in Week 8. And now we saw it last weekend from Jackson, helping propel this team to the through in the playoffs. But when it comes to this offense, you've got the stars and the regulars and guys like Josh Byrne and Dane Smith, who are the catalysts of this offense, putting up huge point totals on a regular basis. And then it's these other guys stepping up big that seems to have made all the differences here over the last few weekends, especially in this quarterfinal win.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing for us the last, third of the season was figuring out that offensive chemistry and maintaining the continuity, of what we've built is more important than, anything else for us. And so with Chris Cloutier coming out of the lineup due to injury, we had a left-handed guy coming out of the lineup. And for us, the lefties compete with the lefties and the righties compete with the righties when it comes to who's going to play on game day. And so pumping KJ into that spot that was vacant with Klutz going out, it was a no-brainer for us. It allowed us to maintain our continuity. It allowed us to build on what we've established. And KJ and Klutz actually have a lot of the same strengths. Each are unbelievably good finishers. Each are great passers. Each are a threat to dodge by you and score using different tools. KJ is going to beat you with a little more lateral quickness and explosive speed. Cloutier is going to beat you a little bit more with quickness for his size, but then power. He gets a quarter step and he's pushing in. It's a problem. And so each have different ways of becoming threats to score off the dodge, but their skill sets are very, very similar as it relates to their ability to finish and feed. And so I'm not surprised at all by KJ's success statistically. With that said, he made a couple of unbelievably good plays on his own that were not, scripted plays. He gets a really tough ground ball in transition to score his first goal. He gets another ride back for his second goal. Those are just great plays being made by a great competitor and really a great teammate. You had mentioned that he played in game 5 or week 5, which was actually game 6 in Minnesota. And then he hadn't played lacrosse in a month. We didn't dress him in Colorado Springs. He didn't dress up in Albany in both games. And so this was his first game back in a month. And he obviously popped off and played a great game. But what people don't see is that when we notified him that he wasn't going to be dressing in Colorado Springs after playing very, very well for us, he didn't pout. He didn't feel sorry for himself. His response was, I understand 100%. I'll be ready to go when called upon. Whatever helps the team win, I'm in favor of. Now, that is something that you can build your locker room around. And that's what every coach wants to have their players say to them. That's what every player on the team wants to have as a teammate. And that's what defines a professional. And he responded professionally. And so it was a pleasure and an easy decision to put him in the lineup for the playoffs against the Archers. There were zero reservations. We knew it made sense from an offensive chemistry standpoint, but we also knew that we were making the right decision putting somebody in that has the intangibles that KJ has shown to have. And, it's just great when a guy that's so team first, fits in and makes your offense succeed. And that's exactly what he did.
You talk about the continuity, obviously, with your offense. We saw early in the year you were kind of running the offense in a 2-2 set. Obviously, we've seen sort of that trip set with, the righties and the lefties. How has that changed, or I should say benefited your offense and benefited, obviously, your team?
I think everything is an evolution. And in the beginning of the year, even going to training camp, we had a roster that was comprised of, some guys with a lot of box experience, and we had some guys that were predominantly more field players. And each group of players are among the very best players on the planet at what they do. And last year in the bubble, we ran sort of a hybrid offense where when the field guys were in the lineup, we ran a little bit more of a field style offense. And when the box guys were in there, we ran a little bit more of a box style offense. And we just felt like over the course of the first 5-6 games, we were toggling in and out between a couple of different schemes. And ultimately we decided that the box style offense was probably the best fit for us, and that the players that we had at our disposal, knowing we were really going to dress 8 guys, that it seemed to make the most sense for our locker room. And since we've made that change, the result is we've been, a lot more competitive. We've been a lot more dangerous on the offensive end. Even when we don't score, we seem like we're getting more depth in our possessions, which gives our offense the ability to take a few more chances. It gives our defense the ability to play every possession with more energy. And of course, obviously the success of Blaze Reardon, but really the success of Max Adler in the wings at the faceoffs. They've gone from a group that was winning, about 40% to almost 60% over the course of the last third of the season. And that is critical. You look at the teams in this league that are, scary teams, they're all having face-off success. Certainly us at this point in the season, Max has been incredible the last 4 games. You look at certainly what Joe Nards has done for the Whipstinks over the last 3 years. You look at the success of Withers and Ryland Reese and Zach Courier for the Dogs. And then, of course, you look at Trevor Baptiste, who, in my opinion, has had the best summer of any of the face-off men. And those are the 4 teams that are going to be playing this weekend in the semis. And so the effects of a successful face-off group cannot be overstated in the PLL.
Obviously, too, Coach, your defense. Your offense has been playing great. Your defense in recent weeks has really been coming tight. And obviously, it's been thanks in recent weeks and obviously the last 2 seasons to Blaze Reardon, obviously your goalie. You mentioned his name there before, who for a 3rd straight season finishes atop the league leaderboard in saves and towards the top in save percentage, finishing the regular season saving 61% of the shots that he faced, which comes as no surprise as the 2-time Goalie of the Year and 2021 Goalie of the Year finalist favorite. He's seen a ton of rubber over the past 2 seasons, continuing into this season, but that hasn't really been the story. This past weekend hasn't really been the story. The weekend before out in Albany, as Reardon only had to make 12 saves in a win against the Archers in Week 8, then in a loss. Later that same weekend, he made 13, and he made just 13 last weekend against the Archers in that quarterfinal win. So trying to limit the number of shots that Reardon faces, limiting the number of scoring opportunities seems to be an area of emphasis for your defense here the last couple weeks.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like our defense has been connected all season long. Certainly we have had a couple of challenging situations. Dan Coates was playing close for a while. Johnny Surdick was playing close to start the season. Johnny Surdick was playing close. Dan Coates was playing up top. Ian McKay was playing pole. Coatsy hurts his back down in Baltimore. Johnny goes back down to close. We're able to get CJ Costabile out of the players pool. We move Ian McKay to short stick D mid. And so, we've been a work in progress at times positionally there, but I just think that Ryan Curtis has done such a good job keeping our defensive personnel educated about what we're trying to do. And I think it's been a strength of our team the entire season. Certainly Blaze Reardon, again, he's the best player in the world. He's absolutely the best goalie, not even close. But he's the best player in the world, and he's played like that every single game. Whether he's had, 20-plus saves or 12 or 13, you look at the amount of shots that he's seen, some of that obviously was due to lack of face-off success in the first half of the season, but he's been consistent at that end throughout. You look at Jack Ralletta, who has emerged as, I think, the number 1 cover guy on the planet right now. You got Jared Newman, who started in the All-Star game and deserved to. You got Johnny Surdick, who's playing his best season for us. You look at the impact that Troy Ray has had. He's having his best season by far. CJ Costabile not only has played great on the defensive end, he's also been a threat, scoring. I think he's had 3 twos for us. and just as a stud. And then obviously Ian McKay has had 3 twos. Maybe CJ only had 2, but Ian McKay's had 3 twos, played great defense. Mark Lassini, Pat Resch, and again, the success of Max Adler just limits the amount of defense that we play. I feel like we've known who we are on the defensive end throughout the summer. It's the offensive end that we really had to try to figure out. We had some player turnover. We had to make some tough decisions, and we made the decisions. And when we make the decisions, we're going to be, proactive and honest in our communications with our players when we make, specific choices. But again, every time you put somebody in the lineup, you're taking somebody out, and, taking somebody out of the lineup is probably the worst part of the job. But again, you gotta make decisions that are in the best interest of what the group's goal is. And the group has one goal. That's to win the PLL championship. We tell these guys day one, we don't care who plays. I don't care who plays. Ryan doesn't care. Matt Panetta, our offensive coordinator, doesn't care. We simply want to put 19 strong out on the field and try to win each situation within the game. And while we played seemingly better and better over the last few weeks, we have yet to play a complete game. And my hope is that we have not played our best game yet. And if we can bring that on Sunday, the hope is that that's going to be enough to knock off a very, very strong Atlas team.
Knock off a very good Atlas team, try to get into that championship game, and then obviously looking to get that goal, accomplish that goal of winning that PLL championship. And as you said, your defense has really tightened up really all season, as you were saying. 11.7 goals allowed all season. That's third best in the league, just over 10 goals allowed over the last 3 games. So definitely tightening up here, especially in that fourth quarter against the Archers when really the offense needed it, the defense needed it too. Your team went into halftime in that game with an 8-5 lead. The Archers put 4 goals in the back of the net in the third quarter to make it a 1-goal game. But this defense, as you said before, led by Jack Rowlett, Jared Newman, Johnny Sturdick, that group able to clamp down on the Archers, allowing just 1 goal in that fourth quarter, holding Will Manny scoreless, Marcus Holman to just 1 goal, helping your team advance to this semifinal where, Coach, you're going to be meeting a streaky and red-hot Atlas team that's coming off their first playoff win in franchise history. And all season, we've watched as that group came together, started stringing together wins. A young team that head coach Ben Rubier stripped apart, put back together over the offseason. They come into this semifinal having won 6 of their last 7 games. And the centerpiece of that rebuild and that retool is a guy that you drafted about a year and a half ago in attackman Jeff T. You mentioned his name there before. You selected him late in that 2020 college draft. He opted to return to school, so you lost his rights. Now in the PLL, he's the former number 1 overall pick to the Atlas. He's been phenomenal through his rookie season, among the league leader in points, already an MVP finalist, all while doing it in 2 less games than everyone else, which is obviously just so incredible just to think about in and of itself. But defensively, how do you plan on slowing him down and attempting to stop him while also accounting for the best, for the rest of the pieces on this offense, especially like the other centerpieces and guys like Brian Cosby, Eric Law, and rookie Jay Caraway?
Yeah, I mean, the first part is obviously at the X. I mean, the best defense that we can have is to limit the amount of offensive possessions that they have. And so the hope is that through the much improved play of Max Adler and the support that he gets from our wings, the hope is that we can win more faceoffs. And if we're able to have more success at the X and more success when the ball is on the ground, certainly we're going to have more opportunities and they're going to have less opportunities, which is going to be one way to hopefully minimize their success on the offensive end. I think that the last time we played them, as we mentioned earlier, Jack Rowlett was not in the lineup, and we certainly felt him not being there. He's an unbelievable cover guy. He's also an unbelievable slider. But he's a great teammate and he's a great leader. And that group between him and Jared and Johnny, I don't know if anybody's throwing out 3 cover guys that are all number 1 cover guys, in this league. That's what they are. And so we're going to have to be creative in the way that we try to stop them. And I don't think you're going to really be able to stop them. What we're really hoping to be able to do is to have some effectiveness with our scheme and can get them to hopefully waste some possessions as they adapt to what we're doing. Ben and Brooksy, are awesome offensive minds, and they are going to make adjustments, just like we're going to make adjustments. And I think that given the talent that they roll out, not only Jeff T, who's unbelievable and plays a very unique game. He really does. He makes everybody better, in such a subtle and sort of humble, understated way. And you don't realize it until you see he's 4-4 after the game, and you got, wow, I just, he is just an assassin, that guy. But again, between Brian Costabile, who's playing as well as any midfielder in the league, you got Romar, who's playing the best I've seen him play in terms of being able to spread teams out, either going right to right or right to left, and being able to hit, again, 2-pointers on the run. You look at Bucaro creates matchup problems. Caraway creates matchup problems. Is there anybody that's more opportunistic and unselfish than Eric Law? I don't think so. They really are a dynamic team with no weaknesses. Mark Cockerton, if you're not aware of where he is, he can pop off for 3 goals. And the list goes on and on. And so it's not lost on us that this is a very dangerous offensive team that seems to know exactly who they are. And so we're going to have to do a few things very, very well in order to slow them down. And we know we got our hands full in trying to create those respective strategies.
Trying to disrupt, obviously, what they're trying to do, try to disrupt their rhythm that they're getting in, and obviously making changes and adapting as we go. And in that Week 5 loss to the Atlas, it was those 3 attackmen, Teat Law and Caraway, that really carried that Atlas offense. They combined for 9 goals in what was a 4-goal, 4-assist day for the rookie Jeff Teat. So we'll wait and see what you and your defense schemes up to try to slow him down, along with those other weapons on this Atlas offense. And you mentioned it there before. Obviously, the first step is slowing down Trevor Baptiste, who is a face-off specialist of the year finalist this year. He had a huge day the last time your two teams met, as you mentioned there, winning 19 of 27 draws, good for 70%, and then he capped that off with a goal in that Week 5 game. Max Adler, though, as you mentioned before, has been playing much better over the last couple weeks. He comes in to this game winning 70% of his faceoffs in the last 2 games. So obviously the hope is that he'll continue to step up here for you and win some of these draws at the stripe, win some of these possessions for you, and then obviously help out your offense, help out both your defense as well.
100%. I don't know if there's a player in the league that's more improved over the course of the season than Max Adler. You listen to him talk, and he will not take credit for anything. Yet his performance against Stephen Kelly in the playoff game, I thought made him the MVP of that game. Again, as well as KJ played on the offensive end, as well as Dane Smith played in the midfield, as well as Jack played in limiting Grant Ament, as well as Blaze played in that game. Max Adler, to me, was the MVP of that game. And he's just played better and better and better over the course of the season. And let's face it, the cadence and the setup in the PLL is different from that in the MLL. And he was absolutely, undoubtedly the best face-off guy in the MLL. And with, the talent that they have in the PLL and the change in the pre-whistle setup and the associated cadence, it takes a little while to get used to that. And Max is a student of his position, and he has really zeroed in on the subtleties that he needs to address in order to have success. And, look at what he's done since that game. I mean, he was phenomenal against the Cannons the week before that we played, Trevor. And Trevor came out and he took it to us out in Minnesota. And I know that has fueled Max's desire to improve. And the proof is in how he played in Colorado Springs through both games, up in Albany against the Archers and against the Redwoods, and then certainly his best performance to date, I think, was the playoff game against Stephen Kelly, who's a stud. And I'm very, very confident that the Max Adler that Trevor Baptiste and the Atlas are going to see on Sunday is significantly different than the one that they saw in game 6 for us. And we're still going to have our hands full. There's no question about it. They are, as proven can be at the X and in the middle of the field. But I believe the pressure is on Trevor Baptiste, and the pressure is on the Atlas, and the pressure, is on their wing play, because, that was a critical part to them beating us in Minnesota. And it's certainly something that we have focused on. And we'd like to think that, we're going to be a tougher out in that area of the game this time around. And that is certainly going to be critical to, the ultimate goal of trying to win the game.
Definitely a critical aspect coming into this semifinal game with the Atlas. We will definitely be watching very closely that face-off battle at the Stripe. So definitely something to watch. Coach, before I let you go, Chris Cloutier, he did not play in that quarterfinal game, as we've been talking about. What's his status like going into this semifinal? Obviously, we have a week here before that game, but what's his status looking like?
We're monitoring his progress very, very closely. I spoke to our trainer about it a day ago, and he was at about 80% of recovery. And, we're going to wait until the last possible moment. The good news is that, if he's not able to play, we know that KJ can stay in that role and allow us to have offensive success. But quite frankly, I think that we're going to be most dangerous when we have, all of our most talented players playing together, within scheme. And so that would suggest that we need Cloutier back, but we also are extremely confident in KJ. And to be honest with you, anybody that we're going to put into the lineup on game day, we have the utmost confidence that they are going to play within scheme and help us win the game. And so certainly we want Klutch back, but we are planning in case that is not an option for us. Either way, I think you're going to see, ideally, our best performance of the year on Sunday. And we're going to need it, because this is a team that's played extremely well all summer long and is very, very well coached.
Rookie Mac O'Keefe, what steps have you seen him take this season? Obviously, all-time leading goal scorer at the college level. Coming into the PLL, different rules. Obviously, he's not playing attack. He's being worked in as coming out of the box as a midfielder. What steps have you seen him take here this season through that first year?
I just can't say enough about Mac O'Keefe's complete commitment to the team's success, with zero ego and zero meanness. He is just a soldier to his teammates' success. He plays within scheme as well as anybody. As such a prolific goal scorer as a college player, you would think that he would be sort of hunting goal scoring opportunities outside of scheme and at the expense of our offensive plan. And it couldn't be less the case. I mean, he takes advantage of the opportunities he gets, and he gets his chances within the framework of the offense. He, is completely selfless and just wants to win. And to be able to bring a guy in that's that talented, that has intangibles as a person that you want to take on as characteristics of your locker room and of your culture, you just can't overstate how important that is. And his unselfishness, his ego-less approach is something that, really is the fabric of what we're trying to create as a team. And he's been a total pleasure.
It's been exciting, obviously, to watch him in this rookie season. We're expecting much bigger things, as well as he obviously continues on in his pro lacrosse career. Coach, 13% is what 13% of fans had you guys beating the Archers. 3.2% in the championship bracket had the Chaos to win the championship. I know you're trying to get that number closer and closer to zero. How many fans do you think picked the Chaos this weekend against this Atlas team?
I really don't care. It doesn't affect me. And what I will say is the less people that pick us, the more they fan the flame. But honestly, all of that is noise one way or the other. And, we've got all the motivation that we want in our locker room. I think it's, part of the tongue-in-cheek humor of some of the guys on our team, and certainly some of our staff at times pointing that fact out. But honestly, we have 19 guys that have zero self-doubt and are, committed to staying in the moment and winning that moment with focus, energy, and toughness. And that's what we're going to do, regardless of the amount of people that pick our success.
Fuel the flame. I haven't heard that one. I was thinking, or fan the fire, I should say. I was thinking maybe fuel the fire, fan the flame. Definitely like it there.
A bunch of F's and alliteration, and it all works, doesn't it?
Yeah. Coach Towers, I can't thank you enough for taking the time today to join us. Best of luck this weekend against the Atlas, and I hope to talk to you soon, hopefully on the other end here of a playoff win, possibly championship win, depending on when we get you back here.
Love it. Just make sure you don't pick us, all right? Thanks for having me.
Got it.
Hope to talk to you guys afterwards. Thanks for all you do for the sport.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you as well for everyone watching and or listening. Goal Line Extended will continue as we look ahead to this weekend's game, so do not go anywhere. We will be right back.
You're watching Goal Line Extended, presented by Lacrosse Flash.
Welcome back to Goal Line Extended. I appreciate you all for tuning in as we continue to look ahead to this weekend's PLL Semifinals. I hope you all enjoyed our interview with Chaos head coach Andy Towers, and another huge thank you to Coach Towers for joining us today. But we're going to continue on. Austin is back with us. Great stuff, as always, from Coach Towers as he prepares for Sunday against the Atlas. He didn't give us much on the status of attackman Chris Cloutier, but obviously feeling comfortable with the personnel that he has. The Chaos have 24 players on the active roster, not including Cloutier, so it's likely that he would return as the 25th if healthy, but preparing for this semifinal against the Atlas, an unfamiliar, team really for the Chaos. If you look at the past two seasons, you have you got to love the energy, I should say, from Towers ahead of this weekend, which it seems that he always brings, that great energy at all times.
That guy is electric 24/7. He is. It's between him and Nat St. Laurent, my two favorite coaches to speak to in the league, because they just get you fired up just to hear them talk about the game. You can tell how important it is to them and how much it means to them to coach in this league and to be able to to just be able to be involved in the league and in lacrosse. It's really cool to see Coach Towers. He's a week out from this game and he's still that fired up about it. Like, it's exciting. I'm excited to see what he does on the sidelines. They're going to have some more clips or some more gifts or something this weekend. He's going to be ready to go.
Absolutely. Definitely looking forward to that. Obviously, in terms of attackman Chris Cloutier, we're recording this on Monday night. So as of that time, depending on when you're watching this or listening to this at home, we haven't gotten any updates on Chris Cloutier's status at this point. Hopefully we'll have more come Friday's show. But this, for both of these teams, this is not a routine meeting, as I was saying before, as the Chaos and Atlas have only played in 3 games against each other thus far over the PLO's first 3 regular seasons. So very different from what we were talking about last week with the Chaos and Archers. They've played each other many, many times. I think like 8 times over the first 3 seasons here. The Redwoods and Whipsnakes, that's become mainly the biggest matchup that we've seen. Atlas and Cannons, that was the 3rd time we saw them in that quarterfinal. That was the 3rd time they'd played each other this season. But in terms of the Atlas and Chaos, they played twice in 2019, splitting the season series, and then they met back in Week 5, a game that the Atlas won 16-10. They did not play in 2020. And then speaking of Cloutier's status, we'll hopefully have more on the status of Atlas goalie Jack Concannon ahead of Sunday, and we'll be talking much more about this game come Friday as the Chaos seek a 2nd straight trip to the championship game. The Atlas are playing in their first semifinal, coming off their first playoff win, and they're seeking their first appearance in the championship game. They are favored by a goal and a half. And this is 2 teams that have been red hot since the All-Star break. Definitely expecting fireworks out of our first game on Sunday morning. And we'll also hopefully hear some updates regarding Water Dogs attackman Michael Sowers, who has not played since he suffered a head injury back in Week 1 in Austin. 2nd meeting of the season between these 2 teams. The Water Dogs took the first one back in Week 7, but the Whipsnakes seem to be back to the Shipsnakes. 2-time defending Shipsnakes. I'd imagine Coach Copeland and the Water Dogs would like to have Mike Sowers back as they seek their first franchise playoff win.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I know we talked about him during Flash last week, and if he's back, that'd be a huge feather in their cap to have. I don't know if that's the saying. sort of losing the ability to put sentences together as I get more tired today, Ryan. Apologies. But, having Michael Sowers is better than not having Michael Sowers is what I should be saying right now. If he doesn't play, I mean, the Water Dogs are doing fine. Their offense looks fine from what it is. I mean, you got Connor Kelly, you've got Zach Currier, who, he got I saw a tweet today. He's getting some MVP, a little bit of a tease there from the league.
He's getting a lot of love.
See that. Mikey Schlosser, you got all these guys, and then you've got that attack unit that's at times been very good. I think, Ben Reeves needs to get back to just sort of doing what he was doing. If he's efficient, I think that team's a lot scarier on offense. So we'll see. I don't know. It's tough with the Whip Snakes because it's like I said when we were talking about the futures before the Towers interview. You need to have a bad day from Bernlohr, and you need to have a fantastic day from Dylan Ward, and both are possible. It's absolutely within the realm of possibility.
Dylan Ward has been playing great lacrosse.
Yeah, more so the latter than the former. I think Bernlohr, I could be very much wrong, and I very much am wrong most of the time. So, not really an expert, but it is what it is. But Kyle Bernlohr, he's a good goalie. He's had some tough stretches this season. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he comes back and has a massive game. So yeah, it's really, can the Water Dogs defense hold up against that offense is the biggest thing for this game. If they can't, it's going to be a very, very long day for them, quite honestly, because Dylan Ward can only do so much. Blaze Reardon's the only goalie I know that can really stand on his head and single-handedly win his team a game. And that's all due respect to Wardo, but in this league, you shouldn't have to rely on a goalie making 20 to 25 saves to win a game. You should be able to have enough firepower to get you over that hump if a goalie has that big of a performance. And that's, I'm sort of talking in circles here. That's happened. Blaze has made a bunch of saves and the Chaos have scored a bunch of goals. It's not like it hasn't happened before, but you know what I'm saying. Like, Wardo cannot be the only guy going in this game. He can't be, you can't just say, oh, Wardo's on one, boys. We're, let's ride him to victory. You can't fall back on that, nor am I saying that the Water Dogs are, but they have to come out and take every possession one at a time and take advantage of every single time they have the ball in the offensive half. Because the Whip Snakes, if you let them go on a run, it's over, because Nardella is going to control the stripe. We've talked about Jake Withers off the top. He's going to make it a war, and he's going to beat the crap out of you with Currier and Ryland. But, there's only so much you can do against a guy that gets the clamp as much as Nardella does. And for some reason, defenses love rotating off Zed Williams for a step down. So, you really don't want to give the Whips that buffer. It's bad enough when you're trying to climb back from maybe a 1 or 2 goal lead. If you give them a 3 or 4 plus goal lead, it's a big hill to climb back up from. So the Water Dogs have to keep it close. They have to play gritty. It's certainly not going to be a pretty game for them if they want to win. It's going to have to be ugly, and that's how you have to win in the playoffs. So, whatever happens. If they drop it, you lose to the 2-time defending champions. It's not, they're sort of playing with house money is how I would put it at this point. Yeah. Like, there's no pressure, nor do I think there's much pressure on the Whip Snakes, mind you. There's no pressure at all on the Water Dogs, I don't think, because
as the top seed, you're going against the defending champ.
Exactly. The first seed in some people's eyes means that you are the favorite and that you have to go in with that pressure. But in this case, you're going up against a team that at one point this year was undefeated for 672 straight days. So I really think it's, you go out there and you have fun and you try and play your game and see where the chips fall. And that's the mindset that I don't think Coach Copeland's going to go in with. They're certainly not just going to go out and throw, caution to the wind and hope it goes right. They're going to go out and have their game plan, but they need to just go out and enjoy playing, because, tomorrow's obviously not guaranteed with this league, especially. The Whips could very much just come out and roll over them, or the Water Dogs could win. I'd be very happy to see the Water Dogs in the finals.
I'd be very happy to see the Water Dogs in the finals.
That'd be a lot of fun. I'd like to see that. So, you know what? I'm excited to see the Water Dogs win, hopefully. If not, then it's, more of the same, the Whip Snakes just being dominant. So it's really a win or a no-lose situation with the Water Dogs. It's either you beat the Whip Snakes or you lose to the 2-time defending champions.
We'll have much more on that face-off battle come Friday, because that's definitely something that we're going to be watching very, very closely in terms of Jake Withers with his wing play against Joe Nardella and his wing play. Obviously, both face-off specialists have used both or have used their wing play, I should say, to their advantage all season. So something definitely that we're going to be watching for in this semifinal game. And then in terms of the Whipsnakes goalie, we could even see Brian Phipps in there. That's still obviously huge question marks in terms of who the Whipsnakes will go to in goal, something that we'll talk about on Friday and watch for on Sunday. But talking about the Water Dogs, they come into this semifinal winning 4 straight games, the number 1 seed heading into the playoffs, but they haven't played in 2 weeks after having a bye week through the first round and then a league-wide bye last week. So definitely something to watch heading into the weekend and something that we'll discuss more on Friday. The Water Dogs coming in as the number 1 seed. They have not won a playoff game yet, so that is something that they will also be seeking for in this semifinal game. But Austin, before we wrap up today's show, we do have the Whipsnakes seeking that 3rd straight championship. They come in as the 5 seed, as we talked about before. Their worst regular season finish in the PLL's 3 seasons, but they'll play the number 1 seed, as we just talked about here in the semifinals, going to have favorites and as the league-wide favorites to win the championship, as we talked about earlier in the show. I'm cornering the Whipsnakes, as we said, here in the semifinals, having stakes with all the other 3 teams still in the playoffs. The biggest one, as we're saying, being the Water Dogs. But the Whipsnakes as the favorites, 2-time defending champs, getting all their pieces back and some. I know you're getting tired of talking about the Whipsnakes, but as it seems to many, in terms of being the favorites, not just for this game against the top seed, but overall for the futures, do you think that they've done enough over the past weeks to be getting all this recognition?
You cut out there for a second.
Did I?
Yeah. Do you want to start that question over again? Sorry.
I would say if you just want to answer it, I don't know if I cut off on you.
No, sorry. What was the gist of the question? Let's go there, and I'll answer.
Do the Whipsnakes, have they done enough to be the favorites here going into the semifinals?
Oh, absolutely. I won't take up too much time. You've won back-to-back titles. Sorry, everybody. Ryan cut out on my end, so that's on me. Yeah, they're absolutely the favorites. All due respect to the other teams here, but Chaos didn't have a great regular season. The Atlas, as good as they were in the regular season, are coming off. They still have to prove themselves in the playoffs, I think, because they're a team that really haven't made it. They made it last year because everybody made it last year, and they won 1 game this time. But it's going to be tough against a team that made the title game last year, Chaos, and then the Water Dogs, same thing. They're a team that needs to sort of prove themselves, and this is their first playoff game of the year. So the Whipsnakes are battle-tested. They're proven. I don't see how they couldn't be the favorite at this point, regardless of seeding. You got to ride with the team that's been there before, I think, in this scenario.
Getting Matt Rambo back, Zed Williams back to fully healthy. Joe Nardella seems to be in a groove. You obviously bring in Justin Gutterding. Everything seems to be coming together for this Whipsnakes team. We'll see how it unfolds. But speaking of unfamiliar foes, the Water Dogs and Whipsnakes have met just once in league history, as they did not play in last year's championship series. Their only meeting came back in week 7 of this season when the Water Dogs won by a score of 11-6. We'll see in a way how this game unfolds, and we'll have much more on Friday's on Friday's show. But Austin, I want to thank you for joining me today as we look ahead to the semifinal round of the Premier Lacrosse League playoffs. And also, Coach Towers, we appreciate you so much for taking the time to join us today as well. But that is going to do it for today's show. I want to thank you all for watching and or listening. If you are not already, make sure to subscribe to Goal Line Extended on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so that you get notified of future shows, and make sure to subscribe to Lacrosse Flash on YouTube as well. You can also follow along on Instagram and Twitter at GL Extended and at Lacrosse Flash. All of the links that you will need will be in the description of the video or podcast that you are watching or listening to right now. And make sure to head on over to lacrosseflash.com, as well as the Lacrosse Flash channels that we have. You can check out all of our content looking ahead to the weekend's games and recapping Saturday night's NLL Draft. And as I said before, we will be back on Friday with an all-new Goal Line Extended to continue looking ahead to this weekend's games from Philadelphia. So make sure to like, follow, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of it. I hope you all have a phenomenal week, and we will talk to you on Friday. Cheers.
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at GL Extended, and subscribe to the show on any of your favorite podcast outlets. You can find Lacrosse Flash on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and online at lacrosseflash.com.